Okay, I think we are live. So we're just going to give us a couple minutes in order to settle in and start letting people log in and join in on our May 19 Facebook Live for the month. So this Facebook Live for May 2019 is going to be for the N400 process and procedures for naturalization and citizenship. So I'm going to go through some things, but I'm going to wait till some people join us for a little bit more, and then we'll go into a little bit more detail. Okay. All right. So welcome, everyone. Welcome. Let me see if I can see the comments on here. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for watching our May live Facebook. We did one last month as well on the diversity visa. I hope you checked that out. I think Mr. Al-Khalil did that Facebook Live, but for this one, I am the attorney, the immigration attorney here at Al-Khalil Law, and my name is Debbie Lay, and I've been here for, oh my gosh, 5 years now, and I'm really excited to do this live session with you guys because we've had a lot of requests and questions for naturalization and citizenship, especially as of recent. So I'm going to go over an overview. I'll do an overview of what's going to encompass the N400 and what it takes to become naturalized in the US. And then I will go into a little bit more detail on eligibility. It's still going to be a broad description and session. And then at the very end of that, we will open up the live out to questions. Please feel free to submit your questions as we are going. That way we can see the questions at the end, and then I can start answering them. So let me see how I can start. I can see the comments here. All right, so I think we're a couple minutes in, so let's get started. See, we have some people that have joined already. So the first thing on the N400, what is the N400 form? The N400 form is the application to become a naturalized citizen in the US. In order to become a naturalized citizen, there are a couple of eligibility requirements, and then I'll go into that. The first and foremost thing is the differences, and I just want to mention this really quickly, the difference between citizenship and naturalization. Citizenship, a lot of times, is you are born in, if you are born into the US, you are born as a citizen in the US. Naturalization is the process of becoming a citizen. So the naturalization process is a little bit longer, and citizenship is more something that you are born into, or you acquire your citizenship through your parents becoming naturalized. On the eligibility factor, the eligibility factors, there's quite a number of them, but I'm just going to go over the basic 3 right now. The first one is age. To become a naturalized citizen, as an individual person or an applicant, you do need to be 18 years of age. If you are under 18 years of age, you can become a citizen through your parents. That means if your parents become naturalized and you are under 18 years, you could obtain your citizens. You can obtain your citizenship through in that manner as well. And then the second eligibility factor is that you are currently a legal permanent resident. In our office, we say LPR. We cut that down quite a bit, and we say it very often, and we tend to fly by it. But LPR technically means a legal permanent resident. What does that mean? A legal permanent resident is a person who holds a green card. And to become a legal permanent resident, there's a whole process that goes through that, which will be on a completely different live session or a different blog post. But if you are a green card holder for the last 3 years, it would be through marriage. And if you have obtained that time period as being a green card holder, then you would be eligible for citizenship after 3 years. Outside of marriage, you would not qualify to be a naturalized citizen until you have obtained 5 years of your green card status. The 5-year LPR also has residency requirements, continuity, and presence, and I'm going to go into that in just a little bit. Please let us know in the comments also if I'm going too fast or too slow. I know that it is a lot of information, so I'm just going to go, maybe I'll go a little bit slower just to explain the process, and then I'll start seeing comments come through if you guys have any questions, and I'll try to answer them as I go. So let me see, we've gone over the overview and eligibility. The next category is the actual requirements for obtaining your naturalization. In the application process, you need, on a normal LPR, it is a 5-year residency. Well, in that, before you reach that 5-year residency, you are actually able to apply for N400 at the 4-year, 9-month mark. That means that you can actually submit your application and get things ready, or get your documents ready, and then you can actually submit the application at the 4-year, 9-month mark. The process of the N400 takes about a year or so from the time that they receive your application. So because it takes that long, it will go into that 5-year mark quite fast by the time that you have the application submitted. So that's the time allotted for when you can apply as early as possible for the N400. And again, on the other side, you can wait as long as you need. We don't recommend that, but you can wait as long as you need to apply for your citizenship after the 5-year mark. And then let me see what else. The residency requirement. That is a really, really important requirement, and I talk about this a lot with our clients, and we establish this early on. Clients that have been with us from the very beginning tend to be much more prepared because we walk them through this process from the beginning of the process. And by the time that they are, you know, in that space already, they are much more prepared for that factor. In the residency requirement, they basically want to, you basically need to show that you have established a residence in the US since the time that you have become a green card holder. So how do you establish residency? Well, you can have a lease or a mortgage. If you purchase a home, you would definitely have a mortgage, unless it's completely paid off, but you would show that you have resided in this home and you pay utility bills, telephone bills, gas, electric, things like that, all show proof of residency. Some other things that we usually ask for, if there seems to be not a lot of proof of residency, we'll ask for a little bit of extra things such as gym memberships, or even affidavits from landlords to show that they are renting from the space that they're living in. So that's a lot of supporting evidence for residency right there. And then the next requirement is continuity and physical presence. Continuity and physical presence is kind of a confusing factor because a lot of our clients confuse that aspect with residency. Well, continuity and physical presence is actually you personally being present in the US. Residency is more of a paperwork thing. You can show residency by having a utility bill or a rental agreement or a lease, whereas continuity and physical presence, you would need to show that you yourself have been present in the US. That means that if you are an LPR and you are traveling, there is an entry stamp and an exit stamp, or an exit stamp and an entry stamp when you come back into the US. That shows how long you've been outside of the US and also how long you've been inside the US. And we calculate that back usually 5 years. On the actual application, they actually ask for how many times you traveled, how long you traveled, if it's longer than 6 months or less than 6 months. So that's how we kind of calculate the actual physical presence. The requirement for this factor is, by a general rule of thumb, is 3 out of the 5 years. So you need to show that you are present here in the US for at least 3 of the 5 years that you have been a green card holder before your application for N400 is sent in. So that is the continuity and the physical presence factor. Let's see, there's a couple more that I want to go through. The next one is English speaking. English speaking is really, really important. Although I speak 2 languages, everybody in my office speaks at least 2 languages, which is amazing. English is a very, very important language, especially when you are applying for citizenship. Because you live in the United States and the test and the civics and history test are both conducted in English, it is not advised nor encouraged for you to bring a translator with you to the interview. So in the year's time that we send in the actual application, we try to encourage our clients to learn as much English as possible, conversationally, written, and orally, so that when it comes time for the interview, they are much better prepared to answer all of the questions during the interview, and it just increases their chance of passing this exam. However, there are exceptions to the English speaking part. The part for learning to speak English, we do understand, and of course USCIS this too, that sometimes it is just very, very hard or impossible to learn English in the amount of time that is needed to do it for the interview. So I'll touch over 3 of the basic exceptions that I generally see in our office, and this is also the same exceptions are also listed on the USCIS page, and I'm going to have Tabitha link over to that to those exceptions as well. The first exception is if you are applying for N400 and you are 50 years old or older, and you have been a legal permanent resident for 20 years, you do not have to take the English exam. You do still need to take the civics exam. So it does still require some reading and writing, or at least knowing the history part. But the reading and writing of the English part is not a requirement. The second exception is if you are 55 years old, but you have been a legal permanent resident for at least 15 years, the same exception applies. You don't need to do the English part of the exam, but you still need to do the civics. So both of those exceptions require you to know the civics. The civics questions are a little bit complicated only in the sense that you will need to study those questions beforehand, and because those things change over time, we try to prepare the client by providing them with that list of questions beforehand, before the interview, as close to the interview as possible. That way they have the most accurate information, the most updated information, and they're ready for the day of the interview. Okay, and I see that Tabitha has just sent in the link, so that's perfect, and you can link on that to see more information on this requirement. The next requirement I really want to talk about is good moral character. Good moral character carries on later when I'm going to talk about the criminal records and convictions. Good moral character is really important because the subject of good moral character is very subjective, and it can change over time. For example, some states, i.e. More on the West Coast, there's some recent memorandums regarding marijuana usage. In those states, there might be a lot more leniency towards a marijuana conviction, and they would still process your N400 without any problems. But in the 11th Circuit, there is still some issues regarding marijuana convictions. And so we tend to be a little bit more conservative and careful when it comes to those convictions, or if things are on your record, we tend to be a little bit more careful and evaluate it more before we send out your application. That goes into the good moral character in relation that you want to show that you are, of course, applying for citizenship. And in this application, I just want to remind everyone that you are now in support of the US, or have always been, and in whatever efforts that may be, this is showing good moral character is a really important aspect of this application in general. As for the criminal records and convictions, if there are any, we tend to pull all the dispositions and have a full evaluation of this while we are doing your application, and you would want to present that to your attorney so that you don't have any blindsidedness when you go into the interview with the USCIS officer. You want to be prepared to answer those questions and to have the documents ready in case they ask for it. Okay, let me see what else is the next requirement. I had already touched on the civics and history questions previously, but let me just go in a little bit more detail on the actual civic questions. There are 100 questions that are posted onto the USCIS website, and I will ask Tabitha to link that as well. She's already nodded, so that is coming up soon. The actual study questions are really straightforward. So they are in English. I believe they actually have them in other languages as well. So that is available. However, I do want you to study them in English because the interviewing officer will be asking them in English, and you want to be prepared for that in the English language because that also just gives you a better presence while you're in the interviewing room. Let me see. Some helpful links for studying. Tabitha is going to post them. She's also going to post study materials of recent. So if you don't plan on taking your citizenship until next year or 2020, obviously there will be elections and things like that. So you definitely want to make sure that you check back to the USCIS website, or if you have an attorney representing you, you definitely want to get an update from your attorney that you have the latest and correct set of questions and answers so that you are not behind on the information. Okay, and let me see, what else are we going through? I think I've gone over a lot of the big overview questions already with you guys thus far. I think that's the most important. The 5 things is eligibility, residency, continuity, physical presence, English speaking, good moral character, criminal convictions, and the civics and history questions. Those are the things that I really, really want to touch on for this session. What I'm going to go over next is a little bit more in detail of what I actually tell my clients when we're going through the N400 process. The actual documentation of what we will be requiring or what we normally ask for. Oh, yes, that is a really quick tip. I'm going to go over one last thing before I go into the documents. The selective service. For males that have lived in the US from the time that they are 18 to 26 years of age, if you have lived in the US either as an F1 student visa or a green card holder, any of those visas, non-immigrant or immigrant, if you've been in the US during that time period, males do need to send in a selective service letter. If they have registered for selective service, actually, let me go back. What is selective service? It is the military draft. And you basically need to register the fact that you are willing to be enlisted into the Army in the event that the US goes to war. And for this selective service, it is usually required once you obtain immigrant status or green card status. We tell our clients to register for that from the beginning so that when they apply for their citizenship, they don't have to do anything. The selective service is already in the system, and all we have to do is print out a document verifying that you have registered, and the document that comes for that is super easy. If you have not registered, which is very, very common, and we get this all the time, it is nothing to worry about. If you do need to do a selective service, we provide that for you. You will just need to submit some documentation about when you lived in the US, under what visa, and then from there we will apply for a selective status letter stating that you were not aware of it or something along those lines, whatever the situation is, and then we obtain a letter from selective service so that you can move forward with the N400 application. For males, this is a requirement, so we always want to make sure that we ask this question for all of our male applicants. Okay, so thank you, Tabitha, for reminding me about that. So I'll go ahead and move forward on the required documents now. For the required documents, the first thing that we generally ask for is a copy of your LPR card. This is really important. We ask for front and back copies, and then obviously your last travel document, which could be a passport, driver's license, any forms of ID that you usually have. The selective service document is obviously another requirement, and then some other vital documents that we normally ask for. This sometimes changes and varies, but we generally ask for these documents almost in every N400 case. If you are married, we will be asking for your marriage certificate, and if you are divorced, we will ask for your divorce decrees, final divorce decrees. You can obtain this from the court that you registered your marriage in, and if you're divorced, you can also obtain it from the court that you the court order from the county that registered your marriage or did your divorce decree. For males, usually if they have served in the military, we will ask for documentation of military discharge or the time that you were in the military as well. And then all of our clients, we ask for the most recent taxes. The N400 application basically is a vetting process. So in this process, in the documentation, we want them to have all of the information available to the best possible case scenario. And by doing so, we eliminate or at least decreases the chances of getting an RFE, which is a request for additional evidence, and this delays your process even longer. So to expedite the process and to make it streamline as much as possible, we ask for a lot of evidence and documentation so that when we send in your application, it is a one-stop shop and everything is just streamlined and goes as smoothly as possible. And let me see what else. Oh, passport photos. We ask for 2 passport photos, the 2x2 ones that go on your passport. Those we submit along with your application, and so that when you go into the interviewer already has these photos and you don't have to provide anything else. It's just a straight shot. All right. This list of required documents is it's a very extensive and vast list, and it's not required to have all of them, but we encourage that. There may be more that we submit in order to make your package stronger, but this is generally what we ask for in our office for our clients. I'm going to have Tabitha also do a blog post. Actually, is the blog post ready? It's already up. So we actually did this blog post already, and this is for the list of requirements for the N400. It's really straightforward, and it's a great tool to have before you even see an attorney. So you can collect the documents before meeting with them, and then having everything ready for the application. All right. The other thing I actually wanted to bring up because we're talking about required documents is name change. Citizenship, the application for naturalization and citizenship is a great time for you if you are thinking about changing your name. Some people have more complicated versions of their names or longer versions of their names that they want to cut down to make shorter, or to clarify some mistakes that have happened maybe in between a translated birth certificate to the green card process. There might be some lost in translation there. The N400 is a perfect time to clarify that. There is a section called the name change in the N400, and we always verify this with the client, because once your naturalization certificate is printed and given to you, that is your actual legal name here on forth. So that means once you apply for the naturalization certificate, all of your passports thereafter, your US passport and or documentation afterwards, will carry the name that is on your naturalization certificate. So you want everything to be seamless, streamlined, and identical. So that is a quick reminder that this is a great time to do that name change if you have been thinking about it for some time. All right, so the last part of this is mostly administrative. Filing fees for the N400. Currently, the filing fees for the N400 as of May 31st, 2019, the filing fees for the N400 are $725. And that is a fee that goes straight to the Department of Homeland Security. We do not take any amount of that fee. That's a separate fee that only goes straight for the N400. The process for this whole period can be very quick, and it can be very concise if you have all of the required documents in play and it's sent out from the beginning with your application correctly. So that's why we encourage you to use an attorney that has had experience in doing these applications on a daily basis. But yeah, so the application is a very, very important part. And once that application goes out with all of your supporting evidence, you can calculate about a year's time to completion. I'm going to go over the things that happen from beginning to end. Once we meet with you and gather all of the evidence for the N400 to submit the application, it goes out in a packet. And we scan that packet in so that we also have a copy to be prepared for the interview. And then we also provide you with copies so that you also know and you're also accountable for everything that is being sent out on your behalf. That part is the application. Once that application is sent out and received by USCIS, in about 2 to 3 weeks, you'll get a receipt notice. It's called the I-797. That's a receipt notice for the N400. And on there, that receipt notice has the identification number that you can use to track your case from there on forth. So you can also register online with USCIS so that you can see the progress of the case. Our firm actually follows up in every couple months to check on the status of your case anyway. So we notify you if there's any changes or any notifications come in. It's a really great way to keep track of that. So the following the receipt notice is the biometrics. The biometrics is you will need to appear in one of the USCIS facilities that is designated on the biometrics notice, and you will go to that facility. It's a really quick procedure, 30 minutes at best. You check in and they just take your fingerprints, and after you get your biometrics, you are golden. Generally, we do not recommend that our clients travel during the N400 period, but if you do need to travel, we tend to recommend that they don't leave the country until at least the biometrics is done, or at least to travel until the biometrics is done. Once the biometrics is completed, you can estimate at least 6 to 7 months from then before the interview period starts. That's just a waiting time for them to process your application. From the time of biometrics to interview, 6 to 7 months. On average for us, it's about 9 months. If there's any criminal issues or the case is a little bit more complicated or there's an RFE, sometimes it can go up to a year, maybe more, but that's a normal processing time. Depending on the state, here in Atlanta, we tend to take a little bit longer just because we are a large state. Atlanta is a huge hub, and there's a lot of people being processed for N400 here. So that's why it takes us a little bit longer to go through that process. So now we're going to go into the interview. The interview process is about 9 to 12 months later, let's say on average. And when we do the interviews, our office also pulls in the client after a year, and we do an update. And then we also go through that same packet with the client one more time to make sure everything is still good, everything's up to date, no new criminal convictions, no new travel, so that we are preparing them for the actual interview. The interviewing officer will be asking all of the questions that are on the N400 application as well. So although we are preparing you on the civics and the history, that is up to you to study. But in addition, right before we go to the interview, I personally will go through the whole interviewing packet, the whole N400 packet with the client, so that they also know what kind of questions are being asked on the application, and they also know what we put in the answers, and they're not kind of being blindsided by the USCIS officer. So that's a little bit of a snippet for the interview process, but we definitely help you and guide you through that process as well. And if you have any questions in regards to that aspect, I know I'm seeing a lot of comments come through, and I know that a lot of our clients have asked about just the interview process. So maybe I'll make a note to have Tabitha do a blog post on the interview process as well. And then the last thing is the oath ceremony. So if you have passed the N400 interview, which we think you have a very high capacity, if you have our help being behind you on this process, you will have passed the interview and the oath ceremony follows. The oath ceremony before could have been done on the same day. If you pass the interview, you can go straight to the oath ceremony. That's usually downstairs in the huge auditorium. However, that is not the case anymore, at least in Atlanta. Other states may still have same day interviews, but here in Atlanta, that is no longer the case. The oath ceremony will come about 2 to 3 weeks later. The notice will come 2 to 3 weeks later. And if you pass the interview, you'll get a results page, and then a new notice will come in for the oath ceremony. Once you go to the oath ceremony, you will swear in, and then at the end of the oath ceremony, you will get your naturalization certificate. And you will have become a citizen. So the oath ceremony is actually the actual day you become a citizen, and that's why they give you your naturalization certificate on that same day. So even if you pass the interview, you are not a citizen yet. You don't become a citizen until you take the oath. Okay. And then on the off chance that you don't pass the interview, there are still some ways for us to work around that. You can reapply and do a fresh application there might be some mistakes on there that you didn't know about or something like that. You can definitely reapply. Again, you are not barred from that. And or you can appeal the decision. So if you feel the decision was completely unfair, a USCIS officer was not treating you kindly, or was completely asking questions that are outside of the norm and you didn't think that was right, you definitely can appeal that. However, we don't encourage the appeal very much, only because it is a very, very long and drawn out process. A lot of times, very rarely actually, do we not have a client get denied their citizenship. But on the off chance that it is, if the application was done by someone else and it was not done correctly, then we actually encourage the reapplication of that application to start it off fresh. All right. So I think I've gone over everything as an overview and as a broad basis. I'm going to open up the session now to some questions that I'm seeing coming through. So let's see. The first question, if I apply for an I-130, is it going to kill my tourist visa? All right, so yes. On this aspect, yes, because you came in on a B1, B2 tourist visa, the full intent of the tourist visa shows that you don't have an intent to stay. That means that you do not have an intent to immigrate to the US. The B1, B2 tourist visa is a non-immigrant visa, so therefore, if you apply for the I-130 family petition, the I-130 family petition shows that you now have an intent to stay, and therefore, by default, eliminates your B1, B2 visa. Okay, so that is the first question. Second question, is there a maximum number of characters for a name, i.e. for the name change? I believe there is not. I know this is coming from Daniel, and I'm just going to say and answer this question right off the bat, that Daniel, your name can fit on the naturalization certificate. You are totally fine. You can also clarify and verify this at the interview. So you can put it onto the application, and then when you go to the interview, you definitely want to make sure that the USCIS officer spells your name exactly the way that you want it to spell like. So there's two ways that you can verify that. One, on the actual N400 application, if there isn't enough room of spaces on there, when you go to the interview, you can do that at the interview with the USCIS officer. They will ask you exactly how you want it to be spelled. You will write it out for them. Sometimes they'll flip the screen over so that you can see exactly what it says. So there's two ways that you can verify that your last name is spelled correctly, even if it's very long. All right. Do we have any other questions? Just scroll through here. I answered Daniel's questions. See the maximum numbers. And I think that's all the questions I have thus far. Okay, so if you have any new questions, or you just haven't thought about it yet, or if we've just covered everything, that would be awesome. But some of the most common questions that my clients ask is the process of the N400 and the cost. So I've already gone over it, but I'm going to go over it one more time. The process for the N400, if everything is seamless and there's not a lot of criminal convictions or none at all, it's pretty seamless, and it usually takes about a year. From beginning of the application to the time of the interview and the oath ceremony, it's about a year. And then the cost of the N400 is $725. That's the filing fee that we ask clients to provide a check for, and it gets sent directly to the Department of Homeland Security. And then our firm charges our services for our services as well. And you can definitely set up a consultation and appointment with us, and we'll be happy to give you a quote for the N400 application process. All right. Let me see, filing of the form. So I've mentioned at least 100 times now that the filing form is N400. I'm going to make a note here and divert over to one of the other forms that a lot of people confuse the naturalization forms with. So the N400 is the application for naturalization for adults. There is also an application for minors and children. That is called the N600. And a lot of times people who have aged out, or if they've aged out of the process, if they were applicable from the time that they were a minor, or they should have applied for citizenship when they were a minor but didn't, and then they aged out, there's usually a discrepancy and some confusion onto which form you want to use. In that instance, I would really recommend that you speak to an immigration attorney so that we can evaluate in what circumstances you obtained your citizenship, either through parents, what age, under what circumstances, and then we can clarify which form would be the best or the correct one for your immigration case. All right, and then, oh, one more question came through. Can you have more than one citizenship at a time after naturalization? So in this question, it's a little bit of a loaded question, and it's a little bit different, a little bit hard to answer, only because it depends on the other citizenship. So for the US, once you become naturalized for the US, you are taking allegiance to the United States. And because you are taking the allegiance and an oath to be loyal to the United States, generally it is your first country that you are going to be putting forth. However, a lot of our clients have dual citizenship with Canada or any other, France or anything like that. If there is another citizenship in play, we usually need to find what the requirements is for the second or third country as well. So for the US, there is no bar to having multiple citizenships as long as you are coming into the US and your allegiance is to the US. You are good here. However, for other countries, they may have different requirements. I know some countries only allow for, if you become a citizen, you are only a citizen of that country and you have to give up your US citizenship. So that is based on whatever country that is in play for you. Let's see, some other questions just came through. Can I apply for citizenship if I owe taxes? So on the tax aspect, this is why we always ask for the most recent tax records, and we always ask if you have paid your taxes in usually the last 2 to 3 years. The most recent taxes is generally what we submit, and if you are still owing taxes, let's say for example, it is now May of 2018 and a lot of people have asked for extensions and they have not fully finished their taxes for 2018, but they're applying for citizenship. The 2018 will be due at the time you go to the interview. We prefer to send it with the application. But if you need to have an extension, we will send in the proof that you have applied for an extension. If you owe taxes and you are not on a payment plan, yes, it could affect your citizenship. We don't exactly know how bad it can be, or if it would affect it at all. We would have to evaluate that more on a case-by-case basis. But as a general question, yes, if you do owe taxes, it could affect your N-400 application. So I would highly recommend that you speak to an attorney or your attorney and CPA to see how you can resolve that issue before you send in your application. Let's see, the next question. Can I apply for citizenship if I have criminal records? So yeah, going back on the topic when I was speaking about the criminal records, conviction, and good moral character. Good moral character is really, really important in the citizenship application. And basically when you're interviewing with the officer and you are discussing, or you're going through all of your past criminal records, we definitely evaluate it and see if any of these can affect your N-400 application. If they are minor traffic violations like speeding or minor traffic infractions that are under $500, it's generally fine. We disclose it, but if you have the ticket and the payment to show that you've gone to court and have resolved that issue, that's not a big issue on the actual N-400 application. However, if there is a aggravated felony, a felony, and or domestic violence issues, then yes, we do evaluate that in much bigger detail, and we will actually go to get the dispositions as well as the records to see what the charges are, what the convictions are, how long ago it was that these convictions came to be. If they were fairly recent, we may advise you to delay the N-400 process until some time has gone by and you have not had any new criminal records. However, we have many clients that have had criminal records, a DUI or something like that 10, 15 years ago. we generally wait a 5-year period before we send in the N400 application. But like I said, each case is different. And so when you have a criminal record, we highly recommend that you get a copy of that record on your own if possible, and bring it with you so that the attorney can evaluate that and make sure that your N400 application is the best possible one that is submitted. Okay, so that's a lot of questions. Are there any other ones that are coming through? All right. So if you have any other questions that you think about, please feel free to leave them in the comments on this live feed. Once we end this live session, we are going to post it, so you can definitely comment on them after the fact. And if you would like to set up a consultation with us and you would like to speak with me or Mr. El Khalil or our firm in regards to your immigration issue, or you have even questions about a criminal issue or anything along those lines, please give us a call. Our office phone number is 770-612-3499. That is our main office line. And we also are available to our international clients. Internationally, we have a WhatsApp phone and a mobile WhatsApp phone. A mobile phone that has WhatsApp in it. And that phone number is 678-900-6845. I'm going to say that one more time. 678-900-6845 is our mobile number, and we do respond to the WhatsApp messages that come through as well. And then if you'd like to reach out to us via email or online, our website has a schedule your appointment link, and you can pick your date and time online, and it's called the schedule your appointment link on our website. So please feel free to set one up there, or you can email us directly at info@elkhalil.com. So info, I-N-F-O, at ELKHALILLAW.com. All right, and of course, we are very much active on social media as well. All of our staff are always posting fun things and tidbits of information on social media. We are active on Facebook, of course, and our Facebook handle is @El Khalil Law PC. And we are also live on Instagram fairly often, and Twitter. So both of the Instagram and Twitter handles are the same, and that is @El Khalil Law. All right. So, oh, and one additional thing, we will be posting some videos on YouTube as well. So we're working on a lot of really, really good content for you guys. Please feel free to check in on any or all of the social media handles, and we will be posting on YouTube with some really good content in the near future. And we look forward to hearing from all of you, and hopefully seeing you all in person as well. All right. I think I am done here. All right. So thank you so much for joining us. It was a really good session, and I hope you guys got some useful information about this. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. My name is Debbie, and I also speak Vietnamese. We have Spanish speaking and Arabic speaking in the office as well, but we would love to hear from you, and we're excited about what's to come. So thank you so much, and have a good day.